Welcome back, Super Centex podcast time with Chad Conine and Michael Haig. I'm Bryce Cherry. Gentlemen, how are y'all?
What's up? How are we doing?
Playoff baseball is up and running. So,
it's about the fourth time Chad's told me that.
I like playoff baseball because you sit there at night and whatever's happening in the game, especially when it gets late in the game, you just get to watch people being sports stressed. Everybody's standing and they go shot to shot, and you see all these fans being really
there's
nervous.
Nothing quite like the stress of playoff baseball. I'll give you that because obviously we know baseball's pacing is a little slower, and the tension builds, and you're just like,
All
right. But we'll talk baseball later in the spring, if we're talking high schools. But right now we're talking football. It's a week of byes across Central Texas, as a lot of teams in 6-team districts take their bye right before district play. But we do still have a big game down in Killeen on Friday as the 4-1 Midway Panthers face 5-0 Shoemaker. Both of these teams played 3-point games last week, with Midway falling to Harker Heights at home on homecoming. Shoemaker winning over Temple on the road by 3. So do you guys expect another close game, and how much does Midway need this one?
I do expect a close one. I think it's just kind of par for the course with the way these top 4 teams of the district are going to play each other. And obviously, as we've talked about on the pod, Midway's got those 3 teams. They started with Harker Heights, now Killeen Shoemaker, and now Temple the week after. That's about as tough of a start as it gets. I do think it's going to be close. I kind of feel like this is going to be one of those games where it's going to be real tightly contested for 85% of the game. I think once you get into probably that early to midway point of the fourth quarter, I think that's when one of those teams is going to take control for good. And I think it's going to be Midway. I think if Midway had beaten Harker Heights, I would probably actually lean Shoemaker. And you're probably thinking, well, wait, why? I think the fact that Midway lost to Harker Heights, there's a kind of a bad taste in their mouth right now. I think they're going to really bounce back strong. I know they're a little banged up, and I do have some injury updates for you guys from Joe Gillespie, but again, I think the Panthers are going to be a little bit more physical. I think they're going to be motivated to bounce back, and obviously Shoemaker's trying to protect its perfect record too. But I think Midway's got something up their sleeve for them. So we'll see.
What are the injury updates?
So Hudson King, who has not played since week 1, he should be back in a week or 2, so he's going to miss this game. And then Chauncey King, who missed last week, he's doubtful. I mean, there's a chance he could play. He probably won't, but don't be surprised if he suits up and he's good to go. And then Max Mayton, who you talked about getting banged up, he's a game time decision, so he also could suit up. But those are 3 pieces they would like to have for sure.
Yeah, no question. And I would say, I've said it before, but the strength of their defense is their linebackers, and not having Chauncey, potentially not having Max Mayton, not a great position for the Midway defense, but they've been tough all year. Chad, what do you think?
Well, it sounds like last week Midway ran into that game where a bunch of things didn't go their way. When you got 11 guys on the field at a time, there's a lot of variables, and the ball bounces funny, and it sounded like it didn't bounce the Panthers' way a little bit. I think they had a key fumble, right, that kind of hurt them. In a 10-game season, you're going to have your best game and your worst game and your unluckiest game, maybe is another way to put it. And maybe if that's what Midway had, and they can bounce back from that and be sharper and rebound against Shoemaker, then good for them. There might be a lot of real testers for me. And I think we mentioned before they're in a 3-week stretch with Heights, Shoemaker, and Temple. There was going to be a lot of real close games. And when you think about it, I mean, so the NFL, all 17 games count the same, right? And in college football, College football is kind of weird because your conference games count more than your non-conference games, but you can't really afford to lose too many, and you especially can't afford to lose late, right? If you're going to drop one, you might as well drop it early. But high school, your district games, you get like 5 or 6 of them, and that, I mean, they're the only ones that count, really. Like Coach Tusa used to say, the first 5 don't matter, right? It's what we do in district and beyond. So we'll see if Midway can kind of answer the bell, because we've seen it go the other way on Midway before in recent years, where they lost a lot of early games and got things going for district. So they need to get things back going for district now.
Yeah, no doubt. Last week when I was after the game back here at the house, transcribing, compiling the stats, all of those things that we do after the game. The stats between Harker Heights and Midway were so similar. I mean, rushing, passing, everything. I mean, the quarterback's completions, and it was just very, and the takeaways. Midway had one, Harker Heights had one. Harker Heights takeaway came at a very opportune time, but. So what made the difference in the game? Well, I mean, you could say special teams. Harker Heights gets a huge kickoff return for a touchdown out of the second half kickoff. That one I told you about where the guy bobbled it, and I asked Joe after the game, do you think the bobble helped? Because it was one of those where the kid bobbles it and bounces, and then he picks it up and he goes, oh, there's a seam, and I didn't know if like the bobble sort of threw everybody off, but Joe said, no, it was where we kicked it. We shouldn't have kicked it in the middle. You don't kick it in the middle, but, and then Midway had a long kickoff return by Lathan Wissington that got called back. I told you about that one, the flag from the far sideline.
Well, and that was like a 50-yard penalty.
Yeah, 50-yard penalty.
Yeah.
It was a 50-yard penalty. It was a 60-yard return. They get back up to their own 11, and then the fumble came a few plays after that. I'm saying all that to say it wouldn't surprise me if this game against Shoemaker is similar, and that something like special teams make the difference. If that's the case, I still like Midway's chances because they've got a great returner in Jesse Satterfield. They've got a great all-around player in Lathan Wissington. He's returned one back for a touchdown on a kickoff this year. Abraham Bustamante is a really good kicker for Midway. So,
Yeah, and all the special teams talk, you didn't even mention the Harker Heights kicker long field goal. It was, I guess, the difference in the game.
That kid was amazing. And I don't know, you guys have seen Shoemaker. What's their kicker like? Do you remember?
I mean, he didn't jump off the page because they didn't really need him to drill some long ones. I think he had like a 30-something yarder and made all his – like, he looked good.
Obviously, University was in that game against Shoemaker and then had a bunch of penalties in the second half.
And they gave up a long return to London Smith, so there you go, maybe.
Yeah, so we'll see. I don't think Midway will have – I don't want to jinx it for Midway, but I don't think they'll have the same penalty issues that University had against Shoemaker, but – I do expect a close game down in Killeen on Friday night, so we'll see how it comes out. I think we've talked about it before, but I think we're all looking forward to week 9 when Chilton and Bremond play. Should be a state-ranked matchup if everything holds.
Yeah, I mentioned that one to Coach Kozowski, the Bremond coach, after the game on Friday. I was like, hey, how soon do y'all play Chilton? I was kind of already like, all right, let's get that one going.
Let's go. I'm ready.
And it's a little bit further on down the line, but
yeah,
I think he agreed, and I think he agreed that one will be worth the trip to wherever it's at, Bremond or Chilton. Do we know that? We know that, obviously.
Yeah.
Let me punch a few buttons here and figure it out.
Well, while you're punching, I'll keep talking. So,
all right,
it's in Bremond.
Before the Pirates can get to that point, that week 9 matchup, they've got to get past Mart first. So, Chad, you've seen the Mart Panthers twice this season. Michael, you saw Chilton last week, so forecast this game for me. I haven't seen either of these teams. Can the underdog pull off the upset? And yes, it's weird to think of Mart as an underdog, but that's what they are in this game. Or does
I was getting my haircut last week, and my barber is from Riesel, and I told her that Mart was the underdog against Bremond. She was like, "No way!" It's like that's different. So yeah.
Yeah. So, well, who do you like, Chilton or Mart?
Okay. Here's the thing with Mart. They're getting better. Their quarterback had, I think, over 200 yards, maybe over 300 yards passing the other night against Bremond. Was moving the chains, was kind of hurting Bremond in some moments, when Bremond had a chance to get off the field. And if they can do that against Bremond, who I think has a pretty dang good defense, they could really turn that Chilton game into a shootout, back and forth type of game. Although Chilton's defense has been pretty dang good too. So the other thing is, and I was going to mention this in a minute to one of the later questions, but my goodness, and this is where, like, I really enjoy shooting photos on Friday night, and I got a couple of good shots of Tank Scott, but it's not the same as sometimes being up there charting the stats, because Tank had 342 rushing yards the other night. I knew it was a lot,
unreal,
because I knew he had over 100 yards just in touchdown runs.
Yeah.
So, but he had 342 rushing yards, and he was running Wildcat a lot of the time, So I think Marnico probably is going to see that and want to take advantage of that too.
I certainly hear your point about how it could turn into a shootout. My only pushback on that is I don't necessarily know if Chilton is built for that. Chilton is, and maybe this is just because of the one game I saw was such a slugfest in the first half. I want to lean toward maybe this Mart-Chilton game kind of being that way too, like more of a slugfest in a way, and because I think Mart has more like quick twitch playmakers than Chilton, certainly on offense. Like I think if it turned into a track meet, Mart would probably run away with it. Maybe not convincingly, but they would have the upper hand for that.
Chilton, and I think that's probably the kind of game Mart wants, because they are giving up a lot of chunk plays.
What Chilton does really well is lean on that defense, particularly that front seven. They are really tough to penetrate. Xavier Taylor in the middle, Nate Webber, those linebackers, they cover a lot of ground. And guys up front really plug up. Like, it's tough to run on them and find angle. And if you're trying to, pass on them or whatever, like they're pressuring you, they're in your face. They've got really like Jamarian in the as a DB is a good Jamarian Clark. He's a good DB. Like they've got guys. Nico Thomas is back there, bat balls down, having picks. Like it's one of these matchups where, again, I think to your point, Chad, like Mart would probably want it to turn more offensive because I think they're built for that more. And that's not to say, I mean, Chilton's outscoring opponents by over 100 points this year. It's not like they can't score. They're just doing that more so on the back of their defense, I think.
Well, and here's the thing. Look at who Mart's played so far to get them in position. They played two schools that were 3 divisions bigger, and they played Bremond, which might just be the best team in 2A D2.
Right. Well, and I mean, so in terms of who am I going to, I picked Chilton in this one because I feel like Chilton has kind of earned that pick from me in a way. I mean, Chilton hasn't shown me any reason not to pick them. But Mart is Mart. Like Benny Hewitt will tell you that. Mart is Mart. He told me that today on the phone. Like,
well, and as big of a favorite as Bremond was last week, you got this sense that, man, they got in that game and it was like,
it was not easy for Bremond.
Mart. It's Mart,
Yeah.
And Mart led for a pretty good chunk of that game.
Yeah, they up 6-0 at halftime.
12-7 at one point,
12-7 in the third quarter. Yeah.
I'm fascinated to see how Chilton, and then also I wanted to point out, this was obviously not Coach Lancaster's schedule, but this is the first home game for Mart this year.
That's so insane.
Isn't that crazy? So it's going to be and those fans do travel well. He pointed that out. Like they've had good atmospheres even on the road, but that's going to be kind of a circus atmosphere there. They're going to be really fired up for that one.
No doubt. It's a good stadium there, Mart. Passionate fan base.
No doubt.
High expectations. So, yeah, it should be fun. That is where Michael, is that where you'll be, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Very much so looking forward to that.
Yeah, should be good. All right, so we're essentially at the halfway point of the regular season, entering week 6 of 11. We know that a lot is going to happen between now and December that will affect our Super Centex awards. But this is fun to do. Give me your mid-season winners for Coach of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. And people, if you're listening, do not hold us to this. Again, stuff will change.
And here's a little asterisk. When we sit down to pick these teams, we usually do it right before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And playoff stats figure heavily into it. Because guys like Tank Scott, who I mentioned earlier, had, I don't know, triple-digit tackles last year. I can't remember if it was 110 or 190, although that's a big difference.
And what these guys' teams do in the playoffs, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you play 5 extra games, your stats get way pushed. That's an extra half season. So.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Michael.
All right. Well, for Coach of the Year, I wrote down like 6 names that I think could win it, but I'll stick to maybe 1 or 2. I think John Bachtel of Fairfield is off to a really nice start, and with the senior leadership that he has, and being able to put forth a team that is really dominating on all cylinders, that's impressive stuff. And then
they entered the state rankings. We finally,
we
talked them up enough that maybe Texas football hurt us.
Yeah, I'll leave some of these other names off in case. I mean, there's several others that are appetizing for sure. Player of the Year, I'll throw out 2 names, and none of them are Tank Scott, which is crazy because Tank Scott is certainly of that caliber. But Cole Collins of Fairfield. I mean, if you look, the crazy thing, and we haven't talked about this enough with him, pull up Stats Plus in a day or two and look at his numbers. He's up at the top, which is remarkable. I mean, his numbers are insane, dude. He's only playing like 2 quarters a game. Like they're not. Trust me, they're not just leaving him out there for 4 quarters in some of these blowouts. Like I've seen it. And like if you pull up his Twitter, he'll say 20 for 24 passing, 200 yards, 5 touchdowns, and then at the bottom it'll say 2.5 quarters played. It's like so his numbers are off the charts, and he's not even playing full games. So I think he's in consideration. Now, the one player that I had high expectations for going into the year, and I think if you're looking at it from a both sides of the ball kind of thing, I think Amos Phillips of Gatesville is sneaky. He was our defensive player of the year last year.
Right.
He wreaks havoc on that side of the ball, but he's one of our area leaders as a receiver too.
Yep.
And anyone in Gatesville will tell you he's their best player, and they go as far as he goes.
I called him in the little preview capsule for Gatesville's game last week. I called him Famous Amos Phillips.
Yeah. Well, he's kind of our Central Texas Travis Hunter, doing it on both sides as a receiver and a DB. He's really good. And just to round out here, I won't take too much time. Defensive Player of the Year, still kind of early to. All of these are early to tell. Things can change. But 2 stats that jumped off the page when I'm looking through Stats Plus and thinking about team success. Russell Foy of Frost. 8 sacks.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Holy smoke. In 4 games. And I know they're going to get tested a little bit more in this district. Not that they've played anyone soft, but you know what I mean? They're going to, those numbers might kind of even out a little bit.
They got to play all those teams we were just talking about.
You still got to get 2 sacks a game to have 8 through 4 games. That's impressive. And then Connor Culvert of Fairfield, 6 interceptions is nuts too. Those are all the names. I've left it there on the table. I'll let you take it over, Chad.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I'm gonna mention Tank at Bremond, 342 rushing yards the other night, 700 for the year, pretty good. They're throwing the ball pretty. I don't know, they didn't really open up the passing game much the other night. I think that they just felt like they could grind that one and win it that way. And they had an interception in the first half that might have been kind of a, it's like, why are we trying to do that when we can get the ball to Tank and let him roll,
You also mentioned only 700 yards. I mean, he's averaging 10 a carry. He doesn't have triple-digit carries.
The reason I said only is our fastest man to the fastest man to 1,000 yards, which is an official designation. We call it the Jadeveon Sunday Award. Just kidding. Making all this up as I go along. Remember when Jadeveon Sunday hit 1,000 in the 4th game of the year?
Yeah. It was insane.
Uh-huh. But Evan Moreno hit 1,000 yards the other night, and that's through the first 5 games, I guess. And kind of a light workload in that game. So and that's a guy I've seen a lot this year, and has been. I mean, in the comeback win they had over Glen Rose, he was huge in that one. So yeah, those two guys on offense have stood out the most to me, both running backs. So um, that's running back, and having a great running back is still a huge asset in this game of football. The defense, on the defensive side, another Robinson player, actually a couple of Robinson players. I've seen them 2 out of 5 weeks so far, but Armies for them has been very active, as has Cash Clear. Army's first name is
Landon.
Huh?
I think it's Landon, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I've got it right here. I'm right on top of it. It is Landon. Congratulations, Bryce. You win. Bryce, do you know every player in the Super Centex area?
I will say this, as you recall, and as Michael has learned, when you're doing Stats Plus every week, those names get ingrained in your skull.
Certainly.
The thing I like about Landon Armies, he Cash Clear has more tackles and more superlative plays for Robinson, but Landon is just very active for them. Tank is a great defensive player too. Only 25 tackles so far this year, so he's a little off his pace as he said last year. But it's just great. It's just great 2A football to mention his astounding numbers from last year. Triple digits in tackles and 1,600 yards rushing.
Not just triple digits in tackles. If I recall, I think he had 190 tackles last year.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous.
How
about your coach of the year?
Coach of the year, I wanted to mention Jose Aguirre at
Jose Aguirre. Oh,
Gatesville. Yeah. Is it Aguirre? I know I asked him about it specifically.
Maybe it is Aguirre. I've always said Aguirre.
I just know that there was
Aguirre too. Like
there was
he was on my list though, Chad. I thought about saying him.
A volleyball player at a great volleyball player for Crawford last year. Her name was pronounced Aguirre, and so that kind of threw me off. I always default to Mark Aguirre, the great 80s and 90s
Dallas Mavericks, number 24.
And then he got traded to the Pistons, right?
Yes, he did. Yes,
and he ended up being a bad boy Piston.
That's right. He was like best friends with Isaiah Thomas, and Isaiah kind of facilitated that trade. Adrian Dantley for
one thing about him, he's first year head coach there at Gatesville, and they've had a good first half of the season. There's no denying that. Now they got a tough second half coming at them.
So you guys stole a lot of my picks, but I'll just throw out a couple other names.
What did you think was going to happen?
Well, no, this is what I figured would happen. You're smart. I'll just throw out a couple other names. Just when we do pick the Super Centex team, we generally have 6-8 guys that we consider as like candidates for the offensive player of the year, the defensive player of the year, sometimes even more. And coach of the year, I remember last year we probably had 8 or 10 coaches that we were looking at. Another first-year coach doing a good job, Ty Robinson out in Crawford. Obviously got the Pirates going in the right direction. I certainly like what John Bechtel's doing, what Jose Aguirre's doing, or Aguirre. Somebody in Gatesville tell us how to pronounce his name. But
I asked him point blank, and now I can't remember what he said.
It's okay. I'll ask him for you.
That probably isn't a good thing to advertise.
A couple other offensive guys. I mean, I think you got to talk about Lathan Wissington. He's a friggin' stud. And then London Smith.
Definitely. He's having a good year.
Yeah, obviously having a really, really good year. Those guys, 5A and 6A, you may not end up with quite the numbers that you might have down in 2A, but their numbers are really good, So, right. And then defensively, I mean, Tank comes to mind, but as Chad said, 25 tackles isn't jumping off the page, but it's just impressive anytime a kid's making that kind of impact on both sides. But I do like when we, on our defensive guy, obviously you want a guy that's a great playmaker, but sometimes you want somebody that's a reflective of a really great defense too. And so I could see, Michael, you might have to help me out on this. Like if Chilton kept up the kind of defensive pace they are, or if Fairfield, have they given up 12 points all year? Is that what we said?
Chilton?
No,
or Fairfield?
Fairfield.
Let me see. Fairfield has given up. No, that Fairfield's given up more than it's. So Chilton's given up 12. Fairfield's given up. Here, I can do some quick math here.
Well, anyway,
68 points.
Okay. Still pretty good.
Right.
So, what I'm saying is we might look to a great defensive team for their best player. You mentioned Culver, who leads the area in interceptions. So yeah. All right, let's get to our last little thing that we're going to talk about. So let's talk picks. Each week we make our predictions. A lot of times on these games, the three of us are all going the same direction because sometimes it's not that hard to predict. But there's always going to be some games where I call them out on a limb picks, where you're the only one, the other two guys are going the other direction. And yes, here's your out on a limb records. And by the way, as I was compiling these records, I think I did it like 3 different times and I came up with 3 different numbers. So who knows if they're right?
I have not heard these numbers, by the way, Chad, and I have not. I don't know what these numbers are going to be.
That's why you're right about football and not programming nuclear missiles.
Amen. So Chad, I've got you at 10-6 on the year.
Solid.
Michael 10-7.
Okay.
And I am 11-12. So right under 500.
You take a lot more chances.
I was about to say,
some chances. I do take.
I guess
some
I need
chances.
to. Well, I need to fire off more.
Here's the deal. My end of the season record is going to be 10-6 on out of the limb picks because unless Michael starts making his picks way later in the year, I'm just
mine are in there.
Every game the same. As
I made sure
so he can't catch me
after the after dark when you wanted me to go first. I went in there early this week and I made my picks.
You've already made your picks this week.
You can go look.
I've made my picks this week too. Then
there you go.
All right. My question is, what is your strategy like? And do you get worried at all when you see you're the only one out on that team?
I don't. And like I'm making jokes about seeing everybody else's picks, but honestly, like it is a little bit of it's conflicting for me because I want to have integrity and make my own picks, right? But you get in there and you start breaking down a game, and then I see how you guys picked it, and like unless I see something that I go, because Bryce, you've made some real head scratchers this year. I got to be honest,
and yet I have also picked the most out on a limb picks, right? 11.
I mean, okay, sure, but
out of 23,
shot chucker though. I was about to say he's just getting off more shots.
Here's what I'll say, Chad, because you make a good point. I have crashed and burned on some picks. I think what Michael said in one of our pods about, needing a few weeks to sometimes figure out who these teams are. I was suckered on some teams. Like, I think I thought Mahia was better than they were. I'm trying to think of another team where I've, for me, in my head, it's often hard to pick against Mart. And I picked Mart the week that they played Whitney, even though we know how that game went last year. So, I've swung for the fences on some teams, but I'm with Chad. I don't really get too concerned if I'm the only one, especially because some of the games that we're talking about are toss-up games.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be kind of weird if all 3 of us did go the same direction in a toss-up game.
Yeah. I also don't get concerned when I'm the only one. And hindsight's 2020. I was obviously pretty thrilled with my Harker Heights and then Shoemaker picks last week, and I think I got like 5 games over y'all last week, so I was pretty happy about that. But overall, my strategy, I whether y'all had already put y'all's picks in or not, I do kind of at least try my best to turn a blind eye to them, and I just pick like gut instinct right away. And sometimes it helps for me because like I'm calling coaches probably earlier in the week than y'all are, so I might have a better sense of a matchup. Maybe one of those heavy hitters of the week, like our top five. But again, I just go gut feeling first, and most of the time I'll just leave it at that. Now, there have been times where maybe like if I'm going back through them and I see like, okay, Bryce went this way or Chad went this way, and I might kind of reevaluate. But for the most part, I don't typically change my picks too much, and I definitely don't get worried if I'm like the only one.
Here's a great
that picks the
question for
team.
both of y'all. If you talk to a coach for one of your capsules and you learn that, oh man, they've got a big injury or whatever, do you go, I will just keep that to myself and pick the
Very
game?
much so, very much
Probably,
so.
I mean,
But
yeah.
those coaches are no dummies
But
either. They're not always going to give you that
right.
That's
that
true. That's
that
true. I do
I will
love
insight.
the
say
coaches that will tell you.
You
I
know,
will say if it's one thing if it's like a huge enough deal, like I would hope that y'all are reading through our own capsules and stuff to see that
Oh, yeah.
anyway. So
write it into the cap. Yeah.
right.
Well, and people look at our picks as much as anything. I mean, I've heard a few people saying they're watching the podcast, which is great. I know I showed up at least one game. Like I showed up at the Whitney game, first rattle out of the box this year, and somebody in the stands before the game even started. Hey, thank you for picking us this week. So that people see it, and I think that's part of the thing is like if we're going different ways on some of the picks, that's intriguing for people because they know that they feel like the ball game could go either way. And I want to. I was talking about looking at our spreadsheet, and I mentioned this the other night too. I want to mention again when Emmons does such a great job of setting this up for us. So all we have to do is get in there and make the picks, and the records are there, and the time is there. He's even got our winning percentage up there, which, by the way, mine is the best at the moment at 76.89.
The gap has shrunk though. The
Although,
gap
yeah,
it's
the gap has
narrow.
shrunk, and man, I'm
I'm just
forever
making
chasing
things
that elusive
interesting. I don't know how
80%.
many years in a row I've won, but it's been a few.
I think it's one year in a row.
No, well, I'm going to go back and look. I'm going to do that.
It might be two, but it's not more than two.
We'll see. But Chad knows that some of these coaches, I've had coaches tell me before, hey, would you pick against us? Because I'm like, no. I mean, not if I don't think they're gonna. If I think they're gonna win, I'm gonna pick them to win. But
I will say one coach who would prefer we always pick against them is Don Hyde. He wants that motivation.
Yeah, and I've heard of coaches who I think Jason Orts used to tell this story where the guy used it in like a pregame speech, and he was holding up the paper, and he was like, "The newspaper man does not control your future," which is so great, and that's how we're leaving today.
Well, wait. One of my favorite things in the top 25 games at Waco ISD Stadium is old Delbert Kelm telling Tony Adame, just all them buddy boys out there that picked against us, don't ever bet against the Crawford Pirates.
That's pretty good.
I love it.
It was a good line.
All right, quickly. I'll be at Midway Shoemaker. Michael, you'll be at a couple games Thursday, Friday.
Yep, Lorena Lampasas in Lorena. That'll be
I'll be
fun.
shooting that one.
Oh, thank you, Chad. So I will see you there. And then
the great Rod Adelot will be at the fair, shooting the fair.
Yes. And then Friday, Chilton at Mart. Big
Nice.
matchup.
And Chad?
I've got the Valley Mills Axel matchup for the second year in a row. And by the way, with so many buys this week, does that make us buy curious?
Oh my gosh. Now we're leaving. See ya.